second arc with a good shot of Jean-Paul Valley, but Spider-Man. Batman's temporary, darker, edgier replacement, as you can see, over Bane, the ultimate Dark Age villain. And here we have some of the issues of Night Quest, which feature Jean-Paul Valley as Batman, when you can see great changes made to the costume. And of course the whole idea was sort of, at the time, to test the market, see what people really thought of this whole Dark Age thing. See, did they want their Batman different? Did they want him shooting flames? Did they want him with big claws? Did they want him beating criminals to within an inch of their life? Did they want him possibly even killing criminals, which is something John Paul came very close to? Now, some people say, well, they meant to bring Bruce Wayne back all along. Well, they did and they didn't, because I can tell you, if this stuff didn't promote enough angry letters, and of course it did, and it's kind of funny, in retrospect, reading all these, where you get, I'm sure these are intelligent people, but sometimes I'm just reading, it's funny now, reading some of these, you know, well-spoken, well-thought-out letters where these longtime Batman readers are basically lecturing the folks at DC, telling them, you know, what Batman is, what he should be, and how stupid they're being, selling him out, doing all this. And I'm thinking, they know all this. They knew that then. But anyway. Yeah, so I like this stuff. It's especially fun to look back on, but I mean, did we really want Jean-Paul Valley to still be Batman and not Bruce Wayne? No. So I sort of lost my train of thought there, but except I wanted to say that, yeah, so suddenly comics were sort of dark and hip and adult and edgy, and I was sort of intimidated by that. And I wish I could show you the issues, because I have no idea where they are, but back sometime in the mid-90s, I went to a corner store in my neighborhood that carried comics sometimes, and looked at various stuff like Spawn and things like that, and all these X titles were very popular. Particularly, this is again Rob Liefeld, who is probably one of the biggest proponents of the Dark Age, one of the biggest figures back then, specifically because of his art style. Which, again, if you want to talk Dark Age comics, it's everything sort of pumped up to the max, you know. It's the male physique with huge exaggerated muscles. Women, of course, are just crazily drawn, you know, not realistic at all, sex objects with impossible chests, and very skimpy costumes. And, of course, big guns. And a Rob Liefeld creation was sort of at the head of all this. And you know him, there he is, he's Cable. I don't have any New Mutants, which he first showed up in New Mutants, and then it turned into X-Force, which at the time broke all sorts of records for sales. Once again, Rob Liefeld was living it up. You'd also see Deadpool showing up there, too. Although Deadpool was sort of supposed to be like a caricature of that, was supposed to be sort of making fun of it. Sometimes when you try to make fun of something, you get in too deep to it, and you just become what you're mocking, and I think that's sort of what happened to Deadpool back in the day. I'm sorry if I'm speaking funny. This is the absolute worst time for this to happen, considering this is my most ambitious and long episodes ever. But I broke a tooth the other day, and it's sort of like jagged on one side and causing like constantly scraping up against my tongue, so I don't know if I sound funny or not, so I apologize if I do. Oh, so what else have we got going on here? Well, as we said about Venom getting his own series, I don't have that, but here's Maximum Carnage, which would lead directly into Venom becoming Lethal Protector, where he was, for better or for worse, an anti-hero, you know, fighting on the side of justice, although he used, like I said, lethal force. Which, of course, created a crazy backlash, again, Alan Moore, and certain people saying, you know, this isn't more adult, this is positively adolescent, this is silly, what have we done to comic books? Now, you know, we've got these, you know, ridiculous things with huge guns and huge breasts and you know, barely any story. It's all style over substance. Another thing about the early 90s was another clever marketing ploy to sell even more stuff was the introduction of variant covers, which we still see to this day. But back then it was sort of kicked up into overdrive. One of the really popular ones was holographic covers. I wish I had one or two to show you, but I'm sure you know what they are. So what have I else got lying around here? Oh, I will just say, I'll take another digression on my part. This doesn't have anything to do with the big picture, but since, you know, me, Moon Knight, right? This, of course, even had an effect on my guy, Moon Knight, in the third series, Mark Spector Moon Knight, where, we're just gonna take a look here. Okay, Moon Knight had already had, like, sort of, a lot going on. You know, he didn't just dress up and fight criminals. He had his friend Frenchie, who piloted his chopper for him. He had his various secret identities. He wasn't a really simple, straightforward guy. He was sort of cluttered, but this really, really cluttered things up and made things really messed up. One of the things you'll see is that he undergoes a change very similar to Batman, and that suddenly he's got crazy armor on, he's got Kevlar on, he's got adamantium. You'll see in the shot there, he's got like a staff or a bow that he's using. There he is, deflecting bullets being shot at him. And one of the things going on here, this is Mark Spector Moon Knight number 49, is he's got some sort of plan to like take down like gangs, and you'll see him sitting here at a place with all these screens. He never had this place before. There's another thing. I believe it was called. What was it called? Shadowkeep. So now he's got this place called Shadowkeep, where he's like all electronically dialed in, has cameras all over the city, and he also has something called the where is it? Damn it, I can't find it. But it's this group of people that his Shadow Cabinet. So there he got this thing called the Shadow Cabinet, which are all these agents placed around the city. Some of them are police officers that are like working with him, and some are people that are undercover in gangs and blah blah blah. So then he's got this Shadow Cabinet that he often consults with, where they have plans on how to take on crime in the city, and it's just all way too much. His helicopter has been totally remade. It's now called like the Angel Wing, and it's like this big white spaceship type thing. Because one of the things they wanted to do was like have Frenchie have sort of some of his own adventures. So even though Frenchie, who at this time had been crippled by his brother, by Moon Knight's brother, Randall Spector, there it goes, huh? They sort of had him off to having his own adventures, which is fine, I suppose. But, yeah, so suddenly, again, this was easily Moon Knight's weakest series, and it's easy to see why. Some of it's very well drawn. I showed you an issue I had a long time ago that I liked a lot. Here's the 50th issue, and there's good stuff happening in here, but again, the writing is all over the place. So many different writers coming in and out, and again, it's a style over substance thing, which had taken over the entire industry at this time. Moon Knight was just one more casualty of this. Also, there was a brief period I'd like to show you, but I don't have, of Daredevil doing almost a very similar thing. I'm sure you can find pictures on the internet of Daredevil where suddenly he's got like gray on his costume and armor and stuff. This was the all-time low for Daredevil when his books just were not selling, and they were just trying new things, and the Dark Age just was not suiting him. So when did the Dark Age end? I don't know, maybe sometime in 96, 97. Oh, what else have we got going on here? The Clone Saga is another, Spider-Man Clone Saga. That's another thing that certainly came out of it. It was a very similar thing to the Nightfall thing, you know, are fans sick of Peter Parker after all these years? Do we need a new Spider-Man? Now, in Ben Reilly, they weren't trying to replace him with anybody that was darker and edgier, per se. But they did want to make the stuff they dealt with a lot more, so I suppose. And again, I could do a series of episodes on just the disaster the Clone Saga is. It went on for 2 whole years, so many different writers, so many different plot holes and threads and things, and nowadays, most continuity barely even recognize it. They just want to, do a do-over, pretend it didn't happen. But this was the era when I was getting into comics, so it was sort of a little confusing. The early 90s, I have a lot of nostalgia for. And again, I can look at a lot of these comics, and as much as you've heard me criticize them, there were still some things that were done right, and definitely some things that drew me in. It was just the way things were back then. I remember clearly. I mean, is it any coincidence this was also like when grunge music was, dominating the charts in the music world? This was when Mortal Kombat became basically a phenomenon in the video game world because it had blood and guts and killing. So a lot of it was sort of a result of people who were in, we'll say like in their 20s and even 30s. People, basically, I'm going to bring up Generation X. These are the people that were dominating the creative industry and with sort of their more jaded and cynical views. Like Rob Liefeld, he was born in 1967. That's the same year as Kurt Cobain. So there was just a lot of that going on in the early 90s. And when you're a kid like me who is, 10, 11... I was positively adolescent, so I did eat this stuff up a lot. I did think it was really cool. Not all of it, and like I said, some of it's just sort of weirded me out. I didn't get a lot of the stuff with Image, and if I never finished the story by Gen 13, I'll just say I bought some issues, and I just bought them because I thought they were kind of cool. Do I remember them as being any good? Were they any interesting? No. But, you know, it's sort of what I thought. This is what's hip. This is what's hip now. Forget, you know, Spider-Man. Like, this is what's cool in the comic book world because of the stuff I've been seeing on TV, on the Anti-Gravity Room, and things like that, and the various card sets that were coming up from Marvel that my friends, including Ryan, were continuing to collect. We definitely saw the change suddenly in artwork from the late 80s into the 90s, and it was pretty different. You need a lot of caffeine for a long thing like this.